This is the My Amazon Guy podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Pope, founder of the agency My Amazon Guy. Tune in each week to learn how to grow your Amazon sales. I'm now joined by Adam. Thank you so much for coming on the My Amazon Guy podcast.
Man, like I said off camera here, I'm a secret admirer of yours from afar. Once I discovered your
It's
channel
right back at you.
There's a lot of people pull punches and they've got a hidden agenda and they're trying to monetize stuff, so they just don't really kind of fully share what they really think on the space. I think you're one of the few good guys, let's put it that way, in the
thank
space
you.
that you can trust and are authentic. So I'm looking forward to talking shop with you today, and thanks for having me on.
So Adam is one of the most requested interviews that people on my channel have been asking for. In addition to that, I looked at my video analytics, and the number one channel that people pay attention to who also view my channel is your channel. Cool. So I think we have a big crossover of audience. All of the authentic feedback that you just gave, sincerely right back at you. So I'm excited to talk to you today. So if you guys haven't subscribed to Adam's podcast and YouTube channel, be sure to do that as well. Adam, what's the best way to do that?
Just type in Adam Heist into YouTube and you'll find me pretty quickly. And I'm guessing there'll be a link or something in the description. But yeah, Adam Heist is how you can find me on YouTube.
Perfect. We usually do those at the end of a podcast, but today I did it at the front just because of the precedent and the connection. So, cool. All right. So Adam, you have lots of content. You talk about various topics, but it's not every day you get to tell your story. So how did you get started in the e-com world?
So I guess e-com world, I thought you were going to ask me Amazon world, but we'll go to chapter 1 before we get there, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, like, well, okay, so let's do this. What was the first item you ever sold online? Could be eBay, whatever you want.
Yeah. So I was like, my first e-com experience, I started a hockey apparel brand that we made hockey t-shirts.
Where are you located? Like, are you in North?
I'm in Park City, Utah. I'm originally from Calgary, Alberta, Canada.
I am from Utah.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
I'm out here in the Atlanta area now, but I grew up in the North Salt Lake area. So
very cool.
Park City, that's a great place to be.
Yeah, it is. So I was born and raised Calgary, Alberta. And then I went down to Texas after college for about 13 years. And then
took you 13 years to do college?
13 years in Texas. I spent 13 years in Texas and came here.
I was like, what do you got? 2 PhDs? Jeez.
Yeah. So my first foray into e-com was actually like 2008, 2009-ish. So I had a hockey apparel brand called Grinder Threads. We basically made t-shirts for hockey players, was kind of the niche that we were in. It was like early days Shopify, like before any of the tools and all this stuff. So that was kind of the first foray into that.
You got the Canadian tie-in. For those that don't know, Shopify is owned in Canada.
Yep, totally. Yeah. So that was my first foray, and then kind of took a hiatus after. I think I ran that project for a couple of years, and then just professional life took over, and it wasn't the juice wasn't worth the squeeze, so to speak. It was making decent money, but it just was hard to pay attention to.
Sure.
So kind of sat on the sidelines for a while, and then I want to say 3.5-ish years ago, I started kind of doing my own stuff on Amazon and forayed into that world. So that's kind of what brought me into this space.
That's awesome. So definitely got some Canadian ties. Doesn't get any more Canadian than hockey and Shopify. Well, not Shopify, but Shopify. Yeah. Totally. All right. Needed a better joke there. So, all right. And how did you decide to start on Amazon?
So I think I've got a pretty unique story. And I think it's actually, I kind of talk about this a lot in terms of eras of Amazon, right? I think that called the 2014 to 2017-ish era was more like your eBay sellers that saw something happening on Amazon, flipped over, started selling there. Then that kind of took off. They figured out the private label game. And that was really just like rewarding entrepreneurial grit and first mover advantage, right? And it didn't take much but that to succeed. I think the era of 2017 to kind of the era we're in now, 2020, is much more about dialing in on the data, understanding manufacturing, private labeling, and kind of leveraging that. I think that the next era of Amazon for me is the professionalization of Amazon. I think kind of the common concepts that you need to succeed in the real world, so to speak, branding, omni-channel, content, voice, understanding the customer, all that stuff comes into play. So I think I kind of came in a little bit with that angle. So I'm a bit like half professional, half like entrepreneur. I'm definitely not a purebred
So you get
entrepreneur.
both worlds. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. So how I got into it, was working for a large Fortune 300 energy company. For a time, my role there was basically buying medium-sized energy companies. So there's 13 deregulated.
So, you know, acquisitions, like that's like
I
your
do.
Bible.
It is. So yeah, so there's basically 13 states in the US that are deregulated. So I basically went around and bought electricity brands.
Wow.
And then I want to say it was probably 2015, 2016-ish. We did a partnership with Nest thermostats right when they came out.
Jeez.
And so no one gives a crap.
Yeah,
no one gives a crap about buying electricity. It's just a bill. So we were trying to figure out, hey, how do you like get a relationship with the customer that's not just an invoice, right?
Yeah.
So we did this whole thing, like you sign up for a 2-year electricity plan and you get a free Nest thermostat.
So a lot of time, so I've worked for utility companies myself.
Cool.
I actually have an NDA with a large telecom, so I can't name them. But the saying that went around there was, "How do we get our customers to hate us less?"
Exactly.
Does that resonate?
100%. So, you know, any of these big companies, you have focus groups, you kind of sit around but this Nest thermostat thing just blew the rocks off. It was like the first time customers ever cared about us. It was the first cool ad we ever did. And so the light bulb kind of went off at that point, like, hey, there's something here with like the physical manifestation of an object and kind of having a product that's physical, right? So then we went on a hunt and we ended up looking at companies to buy physical products brand. We ended up buying, I won't name the name, but bought a big one based out of Utah. And then I was kind of, after that acquisition, I was tapped on the shoulder probably about 8 months into it to kind of like come out to Utah. And as most acquisitions kind of happen, it's like, hey, how do we realize the acquisition case on what we paid for this thing? So I spent the first year or two literally turning over every rock I could. Really cool brand, really cool product, but needed a little bit more on the business ops side of things. But one of the rocks I turned over was Amazon. So I knew nothing about physical products, knew nothing about doing business in China, knew nothing about kind of the margin structure, had to kind of, get myself brought up to speed on that. But I kind of started looking, I'm like, holy crap, we are leaving a crap ton of margin on the table by this 1P side of things. Why don't we just, like our own website and other channels we service, like service it ourselves? And we could basically double the EBITDA from that channel if we made that move. Now, the problem is that for those that 1P is kind of old hat for a lot of people, but a lot of big brands that are in retail go 1P.
So my 2 cents on that, I hate 1P.
Yes, we all do.
I'll take your business if you're a 1P seller, but to be honest, it takes 3 times my brain cells to run it. And between the inability to raise your prices on Vendor Central and a lack of control and marketing initiatives, it's been rough to run those.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're wondering if 1P or 3P is better, you have my endorsement, 3P all the way.
100%. Yeah. So 1P, basically Amazon sends you basically a PO every week that you fulfill on, much like traditional retail, but they take a healthy chunk of the margin. I guess the one benefit is you don't really need to know much and or manage much on the Amazon front. But so flipping it over to 3P, we basically had to figure Amazon out. And so for our brand to figure Amazon out, I had to figure Amazon out. And throughout that process, it would probably have been, 4 or 5 years since I'd done anything purely entrepreneurial. It kind of awoke the giant again in me. I'm like, holy
You got
crap.
excited, huh?
I'm like, yeah, I got my blood flowing. I'm like, this is stinking cool. And I'm like, I don't think people realize how big of an opportunity this is. And so I said, you know what, it's time to kind of throw my hat back in the ring. So I've since launched 3 of my own brands, partnered on a couple others, and kind of scaled and grown from there. And that's my story. So I actually, didn't just kind of start as an eBay or whatever else, a traditional story. It was, I actually got started on taking a brand from like 3 to 12 million. So I kind of had like pretty big brand to begin with. And
you know where you wanted to go before you even started. Yeah.
Yeah.
You were like, big hat was already on.
Yep. 100%. So probably doesn't resonate with lots of people, but a bit of a unique approach, but that's my story in Amazon.
I bet it resonates more than you think, because there's a lot of people who work in the corporate side before they go side hustle on Amazon. And so they know what it's like to go from a 3 to 12 million company, but they don't know what it's like to go from a 0 to 1. Right.
Yep.
And so maybe you could talk about those pain points. So like, what surprised you the most when you got in and started rolling up your sleeves?
So I think the one thing when you're building an Amazon, and this is anybody, this is whether you come in with a lot of money, this is whether you come in with no experience and are kind of like scratching it together. You need to wear multiple hats and figure everything out. Amazon,
Easier
in
said
my
than
view,
done.
yeah, 100%. Amazon, in my view, is not crazy complicated in individual parts, but there are dozens and dozens and dozens of parts that you need to kind of get yourself acquainted with. So I think, you've got to understand operations, marketing, supply chain, graphics, copywriting, like you end anything in a business, and you kind of encapsulate it with an Amazon brand. So I think I was a little bit surprised with how much nuance and how many paper cuts there were to be had in the Amazon game. So I think that was surprising. I think the other thing, which a lot of people, mainly when you become successful on Amazon, you realize this, is the cash flow challenge and managing cash flow. You can absolutely become a victim of your own success when you're scaling and growing an Amazon brand. So I think, a lot of people talk about the top line numbers and, here's doing 3 million a year, 5 million a year, but it takes an awful lot of cash and risk tolerance to be able to ride that line and scale a brand, especially if you want to do it quickly. So those were probably 2 surprises for me.
What do you mean? I shouldn't just go out and buy 10,000 fidget spinners and ride the wave? I mean, like
100%.
what? Yeah. So let's talk about those paper cuts then. So like what
Sure.
happened? What mistakes did you make along the way that maybe others can learn from?
Yeah, it's funny enough. I don't think people talk about this enough, and that's why on my channel I'll probably do the series for another like 3 or 4 months. But I'm doing a series called Mental Game Mondays, which basically gets into little nuances and stories and kind of pick me ups and warning signals that are part of the game. But the game is 100% mental because it is a gauntlet. I don't know an Amazon seller that hasn't had an ASIN suppressed, suspended, an account taken out, a nefarious thing happen, a shipment get messed up, a unforeseen expense happening. I mean, you are going to have challenges that will challenge your sanity, that will make you feel like your world is collapsing around you, and that that will make you question yourself sometimes, right? So I think a big part of it for me was learning some of those mental hurdles of both business in general. I think this is not specific to Amazon, but there's absolutely some specific beasts to Amazon that I've cut my teeth on throughout the process, like we all have.
So this really resonates with me personally, like the acronym SHTF, right? Like when that happens, you have to account for like 10% of your gross sales just being like a variable of something wrong happening. It's like, hey, my Chinese manufacturer cut a corner and my entire, container of goods is toast. Or Amazon takes my listing down because I used the word gift in the title. Or, hey, Amazon thinks I sell pesticides and I sell tweezers. Or, hey, this thing that's going around right now, and I'd love to get your take on this. I've seen more than a dozen accounts get attacked with probably Chinese sellers putting in bogus data on other country marketplaces. Like, for example, the worst one I saw was putting in the keyword heroin into a supplement. And it gets yanked from the US, even though the data was in the UK or wherever. So have you seen any of that happen?
So I've heard a lot about it. Luckily, I haven't been impacted by that. I had other fun with the kind of .ca marketplaces. I had the .ca.mx account thing happen on 2 of my brands. The .ca.mx went down on one and a .mx on the other one. So both those markets were down for 10 days or whatever till, Amazon came to its senses. So I was caught in that, but luckily I wasn't caught in the one.
Like the fake dupe account thing. Is that what happened?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The dupe account.
So we had a ton of clients that went through that. Canada was the worst one.
Yep. But so luckily nothing on the back end terms kind of messing stuff up for .ca, but I've heard it happening quite a bit.
It's driving us crazy. Like the employees at my Amazon guys, so we have 30 employees, are really tired right now. Like Amazon has made it way harder. So I'm going to have to tell them like, hey, go start watching the Mental Game Mondays. They need it. And I'm sure a lot of people listening or watching this can feel the same way on that front.
Totally.
So let's talk growth opportunities. Sure. By the way, your video is cutting out a tiny bit. Do you have any? Let's talk hockey. So it's not where the puck is today on Amazon, right? It's like, where is the puck going to be so I can get in position to score? And by the way, I don't play hockey yet, but I've used that metaphor a lot. So run with that metaphor for me. Where do we need to be next year?
Yeah, I think the cool thing about Amazon is it doesn't take much degrees of difference to really do unique stuff in the space against other sellers. If you kind of think about the sea of sellers that are out there, frankly, many of them are lazy because Amazon has served up this amazing marketplace of customers, and they've taken out a lot of the fundamentals that you need to run a traditional business just because the audience is there. So what has been working really well for us the last 6 months, and we're doubling down on certainly in 2021, I think a huge one is driving external traffic to your listings, especially at launch. So I did a California consumer privacy request out of California, which is a law similar to the EU law that happens, which basically you can tell any website, I want to know exactly every data element that you house on me. So I made that request on my personal Amazon account, and going back 9 years, I have every data footprint that Amazon has tracked on me. And I guess my wife to a certain degree too. So every
now, is this personal account or seller account?
Personal account. Yeah.
Okay.
So all of the shopping that I've done on Amazon for 9 years, my wife and I.
Is it just like this amazing treasure trove of info?
Yeah, it's 22 zip folders. I've gone through every folder and every row and column on that. And the interesting thing is they track everything, as you can imagine, from searches to add to carts to what products you looked at to what you bought to what IP address you had to what Wi-Fi you had. I mean, everything under the sun for 9 years, including stuff outside of the Amazon.com platform. But a really interesting nugget there, which is somewhat unsurprising, but they track and tag searches that originate off of Amazon. So that's point number one. Point number two is if that search originated from outside of Amazon and came from an ad platform, they also tag that. So as an example, if I came from a Google Ads, they know I came from a Google Ads to the Amazon.com platform.
This is really interesting. So I didn't know anything about this. Now, when you say they track this, do they have this knowledge because they can see the referral code coming in, or is it because they actually have data on the Google search, or how do they get that info?
Well, they take the source URL, I think is the highest level that they do. And I think that they must have something that codes a variation of that source URL to figure out if it came from an ad. I don't know if they have like some kind of a tag that's in the Google ad thing or whatever, but they do.
So if Amazon's so good at tracking data, why does their attribution program suck?
I agree 100%. Maybe we'll get to that in a second, but long story short, Amazon tracks it, which is unsurprising. But one thing that I have found is there's this debate in the Amazon space, like, hey, I want to keep my conversion rate at or above competitors. I'll get rewarded organic rank. And a lot of people like treat that as gospel, which I think that there's certainly, conversion rate matters. What I can say is even though external traffic is definitely going to convert a lot less than on Amazon traffic, especially at launch, Amazon rewards the heck out of external traffic. Especially if it converts. And why would they not, right? You're bringing customers that aren't shopping on Amazon.com, and whether they buy stuff from you or somebody else, they could care less. They brought new eyeballs to Amazon. So I've seen like just ballistic results with rank on driving external traffic. So Google Ads is the main one. I do a lot with Pinterest now. I do a lot with Reddit, YouTube, Facebook, obviously. But I think a key arsenal both to instigate rank at launch as well as to maintain rank and kind of influx sales is to drive external ads to your Amazon listing directly. Don't use pixel file links. Don't use ranking URLs. Drive it directly to your listing. And we've seen with very minimal investment some pretty magnificent results.
So it's interesting that you mentioned this. I agree with you, by the way. As an agency, I've had to position us within Seller Central, right? So like, it's very hard for me to talk to a CEO of a, $5 million company and say, hey, go spend $3,000 on Facebook ads. But by the way, I won't be able to tell you which ad converted, won't be able to tell you which image, and I have no idea how much it's going to impact your sales. And so that's made it hard for me as an agency. So we've spent less and less of our time on external traffic strategies. I recognize their importance, but because the tools aren't there to support it, hard for me to manage it. So your experience, though, is basically don't worry about the tracking. It's working, and therefore you should do it. So impact that a little bit for me. Like walk me through that. Like how did you know it worked?
So I've done A/B testing where I was doing nothing else but my traditional strategies. And then I literally shut stuff off, including even Amazon pay-per-click. It was a bit of I would call it a burner ace, and it was a non-strategic ace, and I just wanted to see what would happen.
Yeah,
I
you
think you've
needed
always
to
got to
know
have
for yourself.
exactly. So I basically just ran it straight up, ran it normally, and saw where rank was, and then I flipped distinctly over to 3 external traffic sources, mainly Google Ads. Did nothing else. Track keyword performance across the board, especially for the one I was targeting, and direct correlation, significant direct correlation from what happened in the preceding days after that switch was flipped. So
Interesting.
it's directional for sure. Like, I mean, you can't say for sure. I mean, Google attribution is getting, or Amazon attribution is getting a little bit better with Google ads, but it's still horrific. So we'll never truly know, but there's, it was proof enough for me. And then when I saw the back end data footprint that Amazon tracks, I know they're tracking it. And logic would tell you, if you're bringing customers from outside of Amazon to your listing and Amazon.com as a platform, Amazon makes sense that they would reward you for that. So
I agree with the logic behind that. It's for me, it's always been a tracking question. And so like,
yep.
A year ago in July, so 2019, July, Zon Tracker, which was kind of the forefront of a synthetic pixel with Facebook, they kind of lost a lot of their API access. And then October rolls around, still 2019. Amazon rolls out their beta attribution program. And still to this day, like what Adam and I are talking about, it's still kind of broken, right? Like it just doesn't work.
They'll tell you it's fixed, but it's not. I've tested it to the nth degree.
It's interesting. I had 3 different ad managers over at Amazon the last 2 weeks reach out and say, hey, give our attribution program another chance. And I'm like, I don't know. Are you sure it's fixed? I don't think it's fixed. And they're like, oh, try Google. So it kind of resonates that you mentioned Google's working a little bit better.
Yeah.
But I think Facebook and Amazon don't get along. So I don't know.
Yeah, 100%. So I think the main thing I would say, I mean, external traffic's one, but I call it ABT, always be testing. Like always try different nuances and tricks. I mean, the game changes fast. You've always got to be shuffling the deck. We started shuffling the deck with external traffic, and directionally it's been just phenomenal in terms of results. The other thing I think is using what traditional successful D2C, especially brands, do off the Amazon platform. Start doing that and replicating that wherever possible. That doesn't mean to get misaligned where the money comes from. I mean, Amazon's still the cash cow, and those strategies on the Amazon platform are definitely what you need to focus on, but supplement it with some of these traditional D2C marketing strategies, audience building, list building, external traffic sources, content, voice, customer understanding, and you sprinkle some of that stuff onto Amazon knowledge and kind of doing Amazon well. And I think that's where the table stakes are going to be in the years ahead for Amazon. So
I think that's a really safe prediction, right? So a year or 2 from now, people are going to see exactly what you're talking about come to fruition in mass. I mean, it's happening now already, obviously, but like scalability and adoption, I think, is going to match what you're talking about. So part of that diversity, of course, protects you against the Amazon suspension world, right? I went out and bought my Shopify guy site, my Walmart guy, my eBay guy.
Nice.
So like I'm there. Although I have to say, Etsy's made it really hard in the last month. They're like, you have somebody log in from a different country, suspended, like just automatically. So word to the wise there, just be careful with that. We had to rethink like how we launch Etsy for our clients because of it. It's made it more challenging.
Interesting. Yeah.
But Etsy was the fastest growing platform for us this year.
Really cool.
Yeah. Outside of Amazon, obviously. And then Walmart is still lackluster. And I'm just like, why? Why haven't they caught up? I don't know. So what are your thoughts on e-com in general? So you can talk any channel you want.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, it's Mr. Obvious stuff, right? But I understand actually retail sales as well. So I kind of get both worlds, but I think it goes without saying that e-com is the future, and that it was accelerated by many orders of magnitude during the pandemic over the spring. And I think it's, whatever folks that were still on the sidelines, whether it's our elderly parents or like the dude that was like, I'm never shopping on Amazon. I think even those people were converted. So I think that we've
They didn't have a choice.
We've pushed the phrase in as well. So I think this is like, I talk about like choosing the right wave. Like you can either,
Yep.
people talk about in the startup world, in the software world mainly, like, would you rather have a really good founder, a really good product, or be in the right space? And I
Right
think that
space is the easy choice. Yeah.
I think if you get space right, it makes everything else easier. Much like if you get the right product decision
Definitely.
right on Amazon, it makes everything else easier. Like, you can't beat a dead horse with pay-per-click strategies and optimizing a listing and all this stuff if your product sucks and you're choosing the wrong customer. I think the same goes with channel platform. And frankly, I think we are just at the beginning. I think it's about to go even more ballistic. Yeah, so I'm full on a fan of what's happening, and I think it's going to be nothing but better for folks that understand the game. I call it having our Amazon degrees. I think that if you've been in the game for a while, it's going to take these newbies, even the big professional sellers and aggregators, years to accumulate the scar tissue and knowledge that we all have with our Amazon degrees. So I think
that's a really strong scar tissue. That like
yeah.
Right, but you're right.
Yeah. So I'm stoked, man. I think I'm ready to just go nuts. I think it's the opportunity of my business lifetime over the next 18 to 36 months.
So I'm totally with you on all of that. I particularly like your space argument. You wouldn't want to be playing hockey outdoors in Jamaica, right? Like
Totally.
the space and the venue makes sense. So Amazon's the space and venue right now. Okay, so there's a lot of things we could talk about. What is on your mind these days?
I'll tell you what I'm thinking a lot about, and kind of my thesis at the moment is I think that Amazon, digitally native Amazon brands are wildly undervalued. I find it super ironic that, and there's risk, and ASINs go down and accounts can, illogically get kind of set on fire by Amazon. I get all that. There's risk there. And there's a lot of institutional investors, especially, and kind of traditional business folks, especially, that get turned off by that, mainly because they don't quite understand it. But I've been in retail, kind of most of the major retailers you can name. There's no guarantee you're going to be on the shelf if a new buyer changes, if the seasons change and they don't want to load in your product anymore, if that business goes bankrupt and you're stuck with POs that you haven't been able to get your money back. So like, retail is as risky and or more risky in my view than Amazon, but Amazon brands are punitively valued by people that are buying assets. So most multiples now are, go ahead. Sorry.
No, keep that thought. You're on fire with it.
So yeah, so most of the valuations are 2.5 to 3.5 times EBITDA or seller's discretionary earnings. My prediction is that the valuations will go up to I would say a solid 3.5 to 6 times earnings in about 2 years. Reason being, there's 10 major players now in the aggregator space. Three businesses have raised over $100 million to buy only Amazon brands. So for me, I'm looking at opportunities to use my acquisition knowledge, use my Amazon and operating knowledge to kind of chase some of that down myself. So that's kind of what's got me thinking a lot lately, is how do I create a platform, an operational platform, to be able to scale tuck brands in, make the whole worth more than the individual slices, and then also take advantage of the intrinsic growth that's happening on Amazon and the intrinsic valuation increase that I'm anticipating here over the next couple of years.
So this is really powerful stuff. A couple hours ago, I was on a call with one of my clients who had been approached to be sold. And he was asking me, like, what EBITDA have you been seeing? And I said, well, I've seen anything from 2.5 to 8, and maybe an average of 3.5, right? Which is not too far off what you were mentioning. And so we go through the motions, and we talk about how his business is cash solvent, and he's not in a hurry. But if they give him a good enough offer, he might take it. But at the same time, he agreed with you. He said, I think that I could sell my business for a higher multiple in about 12 to 18 months. So I think you're right on this buzz, that businesses are going to be way more valued. I mean, we even saw an agency go for an extremely high multiple in June. an Amazon agency, and it was a pretty public one. I want to say they almost got like 10 mil for it. So it's proof, right? It's proof. And I'm building my Amazon guy to hold. I had 6 different businesses approach me since March, and I'm just like, okay, I'm done with that. I'm not even going to think about it. I'm building the hold. Screw you guys.
Good for you.
And I even had to like build a podcast on that topic, and then I just sent them the link. The next ones that started talking to me. That was my way.
A long-winded no via podcast.
Yeah. For all these reasons, guys. So thank you, though. It was interesting to go down that path and feel valued, but not valued enough, so to speak. So in any case, I think you have some powerful messaging with that thought. I'll tell you what the challenge I've had, and then I'll ask you how you get over this challenge. Sure. So I have looked at so many businesses, and as a consultant, it's more common as an agency to go into a business that's not as well run, right? Like we're filling in the gaps. So I have struggled with the desire to want to go out and buy an Amazon brand instead of starting one from scratch. Now, I have no time to do this anymore, and I'm all in on the agency. So this is kind of a ship that's really sailed for me, but I've long thought about what I could do to go acquire. And I've got lots and lots of businesses I've seen and know what to look for, but I never could pull a trigger. So tell me what your thoughts are on that. Like, how do you pull the trigger and make a good buying decision?
Yeah, so I'm a big fan and always have been of portfolio theory, which much like a stock portfolio, the more stocks you had diversified over different segments and risk classes and all the rest of it, it just, the returns on that have historically been validated mathematically to be the best way to do things. So I've run my Amazon brands and thesis very similar. People always ask, why do you have so many Amazon brands? Like, focus on one and double down and like build that out. I to sleep at night, frankly. And again, this is where kind of I'm a bit of a chicken shit entrepreneur is
I don't even know what you mean by that.
I like to have multiple brands in different categories. I don't like to rely on one ASIN. I like to spread that out. And so for me, I want to do a combination of both building and buying. So I think that there's a space, and this is where some of the more traditional Amazon acquisition shops, I think, have a more difficult time. Is they're good at financial engineering. They're good at capital allocation. They understand that game pretty well. They can build and operate decent businesses, but it takes a different thought process, skill set, and comfort level to build stuff from scratch. So I kind of want to take a portfolio approach of building about 30% of them. So taking about 30% of the funds, building new brands, building new ASINs, growing and expanding, and then buying 70%. But for me, it's all about unique deal flow. And frankly, I mean, I built my YouTube channel because I just wanted to experiment. I'm like, this is a personal challenge. I'll do a video a week for a year, 0 expectations, and see what happens. And literally open up the kimono and share everything that I know and care about without selling crap. So that's kind of my thesis. But I also was thinking, hey, if it works out, I would at least be teaching people to build Amazon businesses in the way that I think is the most successful. And that if and when they got to the point when they're $1 million, $2 million, $4 million a year, they trust me, they know my intentions, they know that I'm aligned. I could at least be the first person that they email or call.
Interesting.
So for me, I think it's assessment and due diligence is obviously part of it. I think my angle, frankly, is going to be the fact that I come from a business background and have built my own brands, but frankly, that I have access to deal flow and authentic people that I'm aligned with, such that, they're not going to go to a broker, which everybody and their mom's looking at broker deals.
Yes, they are.
They're not.
I'm subscribed to every one of them.
Yeah. And I haven't found one brand that I wanted to buy on any of those brokerages. No offense to anybody that's listed on those brokerages before, but so I think I might. For me, it's more interesting access to deal flow, and that's where I think relationships matter. I think that being authentic matters. I think that putting yourself out there with 0 expectations, giving 9 times, asking once is kind of my philosophy. I think that I don't know. This is a thesis. I could be completely wrong and get my butt kicked, but I think that will at some point pay back in my thesis for acquiring brands. So
it's easy for me to agree because we're kind of aligned, right? Like I give away all my trade secrets on my YouTube channel. And so I think that model, I hope it works because it's working for me.
Yep.
So I'm curious though. I am a bad business partner. I'm a good owner. I'm a bad business partner. Struggled on that front. Did you go it alone or did you take business partners on?
So yeah, my first three completely solo. I've got a new one that I'm building actually in the gaming space. We talked about this a little bit offline, not gaming specifically, but a game. So in that case, I actually brought in somebody that understands that customer really, really well. I think Twitch is going to be a very pivotal focus, and influencers on Twitch is going to be a focus for us to grow and scale that brand. So since I didn't understand the customer, plus this guy's just a data genius, and I love that about him, I brought him on. I'm like, hey, you understand the customer, you build the influencer base. I'm also going to use your brain cells to help build databases and the technical side of back-end Amazon processes. I'll do the Amazon stuff and kind of bring you up to speed on that. So that one I brought in on. I do anticipate as I start to step into this acquisition world, I'll probably partner up with some folks on that end as well and do that. So quick answer, not officially much on the Amazon space, but one new brand about to launch, and I anticipate more partnering in 2021 and beyond.
So that complexity is going to increase, I imagine. And so, have you built like an employee staff and a spectrum of workflow that way? Or are you, hey, you work side hustle this, or you go full time on this said person you partner with? Like what's kind of your structure?
So I think the structure is I've got the same operational team underlying all of the opportunities I pursue in Amazon.
That's
I think
smart.
that's one of the benefits of it. I mean, there's kind of functional know-how that's not, it's brand agnostic, frankly. I mean, you understand supply chain, vendor management, pay-per-click, submitting tickets, like, name it whatever the heck you want. There's some nuance to the product category for sure. I'm sure you guys know that, but it's the kind of same employee platform and resource platform underlying it all. And then it's just kind of tucking on top and then scaling as needed as it becomes, the capacity becomes a challenge. I think what you guys bring to the table too, I'm going to tap into your guys' services for certain things, but I think having those very variable, lightweight, relatively inexpensive elements that you can kind of bolt onto the business is a huge scalability advantage. I think something that's really unique about what my Amazon guy brings to the table.
Well, thank you for the compliments there. It's interesting. Like, we have one person on our team and all they do is parentages, right? That's kind of crazy to think about, right?
Yep.
We have multiple people dedicated to ads. We got one person dedicated to SEO, typical agency structure with an account director and account managers and Amazon specialists. And then you matrix out to sub specialists. We actually made a business analyst role for the first time in the last few months. And that was we didn't do it on purpose. Right. We're like, just the individual, they had an MBA and they were just really freaking good at building PowerPoints, looking at data and making assessments. And that's what they were good at. And so we're like, well, you know what, this isn't high demand right now. Let's build a role. So it's fun. It's interesting to see how that happens. Is there a role on your team that you built into that surprised you, or maybe another role you're thinking about making because of that? Same thought?
Yeah, I think one that's, again, this is kind of why I tapped this most recent partner. I do think that having really clean systems and data feeds and taking all of the nuggets of data and information that Amazon and other software tools have and compiling them and consolidating them in a way to make tangible daily, weekly, monthly, annual decisions on your business is something that I think could be a massive secret sauce for most Amazon sellers. And frankly, it goes back to like the laziness of Amazon sellers. Like it's a little bit complicated, right? To pull all that together, to think about it. So for me, I think that analyst for me is like the data / business analyst. Frankly, it's funny that you kind of had somebody on your team that's doing that, but somebody that is looking at that and tranching it into views that make business decisions easier is going to be a secret sauce that I want to build out. So that's why I partner with that one individual specifically.
We've seen a lot of tools come out and try and, like Seller Legend, Hello Profit, even Helium 10 is kind of putting their space in, trying to build out these data assessments. I want to know my SKU profitability. I want to know what's going on. Like, where should I be focused? I think that's $1 million question. I get a lot of data paralysis sometimes. Sure. And I just, instead of trying to test it, I'm just like, you know what, this has been the best practice. I'm going to go with this, which is opposite of the always be testing, of course, fall into that trap. But it's interesting how much data is available. And I think, going back to your, 9 zip files or whatever it was, 22 zip files, I wrote down that number. There's a lot of data available out there. Yeah. Do you have any other thoughts there?
No, I was just going to say, I'm kind of I think you got to have a blend, right? Like I'm definitely a fire first, ask questions later, like go do it, test.
That's Amazon as a platform, right? Like,
I mean, perfect. What's the saying? It's like perfect is the enemy of, I can't remember what the saying is. Maybe you'll remember it, but like
getting stuff done. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Like go do stuff, test, iterate, ask the questions.
Amazon's an iterative platform.
Exactly. So I think I would much more err on that lens if you're going to be anything. But I think that the ability to balance that with asking the right questions and more importantly, compiling the right information so that you can make decisions when companion with that mentality and that approach to business is where really, really incredible things happen. So I think it's a balance of the two. I don't think you can kind of play too much on the data side at all. But if you can use it to supplement that mentality that I think is the origin of success with Amazon, it's where things happen. So.
Got it. Well, we've taken a lot of broad spectrum, holistic conversations. Let's get hyper specific tactics, just kind of fire around here. Give me something I could do in less than 5 minutes. I'm a listener to this podcast. Give me something I could go do right now to add value and grow my sales.
Go create a video ad.
That's a good one.
Go to Canva, cut a couple of videos. It could be photos. There's lots of little tools where you can kind of mismatch photos together. Go and pick some keywords and expect sub 10% ACoS and to be the best ad investment you'll spend over the next 6 months.
So it's funny you mentioned that one. So I actually just hired my father, Dan Pope, to work at my Amazon guy, and he'd been a weatherman in Utah. So
nice,
working for ABC4 and KSL over the years, and cool. He has video editing skills because he comes from the television industry. So that's been his full-time job the last 3 weeks, is building video ads. So
very cool.
So yeah, good one. Okay, give me another one.
Turn on. I do a video on Google Ads, how you can set them up in 20 minutes. Go set up Google Ads. Super easy. The structure is almost the same as Amazon. Cost per clicks are ridiculously cheap, and you will see your rank and sales increase, almost guaranteed, unless you have a really crappy product and write really bad ads.
Or you're in supplements.
Yes. Or you're in supplements.
The highest CPCs on Google for that. Okay, cool. So those are 2 great hits. It's always good to end with a third one though. Give me one more.
Third one, go and spend 1 hour on Instagram or YouTube. I actually prefer YouTube for people that are in your space. Just literally type them in, use kind of generic keywords and kind of go. Hopefully you already know your audience, and email 30 to 50 of them. Tell them that you respect what they're doing in the space, you really like their content, and that the brand that you are building on Amazon 100% aligns with what they do, and that you would like to send them something free, no questions asked. Do that 50 times. You'll probably have 5 to 10% of them take you up on the offer, and you'll have content, photography, videos, and visits and reviews to your social pages and your Amazon listing that will bear fruit, and you'll learn a lot about your customers and the industry that you're partaking in.
So of everything we talked about on today's podcast, the one that you ended on is probably the hardest, not because it's a lot of work so much, but it's the hardest to execute. And I know this because guerrilla marketing, as I like to call it, right? Like you have to really have thick skin, right? Like to go out and reach out. So it's a lot of no's, a lot of knocking on doors, so to speak.
Exactly. And maybe I sold pest control door to door out of college. So maybe that's my old glutton for punishment gauntlet I like to run. So
a lot of people connected to Utah have done that. I wonder why.
Yes. 100%. Yeah.
A little bit of choosing the right going on there. Well, Adam, thank you so much for coming on the My Amazon Guy podcast. Obviously, big fan of what you have built and what you're doing. So everybody who's listening today, please go subscribe to Adam Heist's YouTube channel and check that out. So thanks so much for coming on, Adam.
Stephen, like I said, man, we're 100% aligned, and you kind of know your people, and it was fun to lock arms and kind of dive into some topics again, and really look forward to following your journey and what you guys are building. It's something special. You're a special guy, and yeah, man, thanks for having me on. It was really cool.
I suspect this will not be the only time we are on camera together.
I agree.
So, all right, that's the My Amazon Guy podcast. Don't forget, hit that subscribe button. This was the My Amazon Guy podcast with Stephen Pope. Each episode helps you grow your sales on Amazon through ideas on traffic and conversion rate improvements. Hit that subscribe button right now to tune in each week. And if you need more help, go to myamazonguy.com.